welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here today on this beautiful Wednesday. My name is Carrie McGinn. I am a physical therapist, yoga instructor, personal trainer, and coach in the Boston area. We are going to dive into challenging your mind today. And this is going to be a really interesting lecture because there's so many different ways to challenge your mind, and it looks different for every person here on this call. So my objective for today is to give you a wide variety of things to think about and to really reflect on what works for you and how you want to challenge yourself moving forward. So a couple of things that we're going to dive into today is a growth versus a fixed mindset. What does it really mean to challenge your mind? Some of the benefits, a brief reflection on your personal mindset, the power of the mind and how to use it, how mindfulness plays a role here, and some tangible tips, tricks, and tools to help you challenge your mind on a daily basis. Like I mentioned just a moment ago, my goal here is to give you a wide variety of things to think about and to try out. When it comes to topics like this, such as challenging your mind and even mindfulness and things of the sort, there is no one right answer. Something works different for everyone. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go throughout today, that some of these pieces might really resonate with you and some of them might not, and that's totally fine. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. There's just kind of trying new things and finding what works for you personally. And that's going to look different than your coworker, your partner, your friends, your family. So first up is fixed versus growth mindset. And not that this is a new concept, but in my opinion, it's been brought to light a lot more over the past couple of years. Even as a physical therapist, we start to talk about this a little bit more in our training and what it means to have a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So I just want to dive into that a little bit because I think it's an important piece to touch on. So a growth mindset, this is from the book by Carol Dweck called, I think it's just called Mindset actually. In a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. A fixed mindset is when people believe their basic qualities, like their intelligence or talent, are simply fixed traits. They spend their time documenting their intelligence or talent instead of developing them. They also believe that talent alone creates success without effort. So before moving on any further, I'd love for everyone just to reflect for a moment. Do you believe that you can get smarter, work harder, that you can build your talent and create more accomplishments over the course of your lifetime? Or do you believe that you were given a fixed set of qualities, intelligence, and talent, and then you can't grow from there? Something just to think about. And when I put it that way, it seems almost, I don't want to say obvious, but kind of like, oh, well, I want to have one versus the other. But I think it's important to reflect on, even in different areas of our life, where you feel like you might have a growth mindset and where you might feel like you have a fixed mindset. Sometimes, whether it be as a child or a young adult, you're told like, oh, you're very good at XYZ, maybe it be math or reading or writing. So you don't necessarily hone other talents. Do you believe you can hone those other talents? Do you believe that you can learn something new, like a language or a skill? So if you don't feel like you have a positive mindset, or if you don't feel like right now you have a positive mindset, or right now your mind is challenged, but you believe you can change, you will be able to change your mind. So it's that simple belief in the ability to challenge yourself, the ability to change, that holds all of the potential. So as we go along today's lecture, I bring this up because I'm going to throw a lot of different things out there. And you might think, oh goodness, I'm not doing that right now. Am I not challenging myself? I'm not doing that right now. Am I not, working hard enough? And that's not what I want you to get out of this. I want you to try to look at it from a standpoint of, oh, I'm doing some of these things but not the others. Maybe I can add things in and start to change and learn new things and continue to challenge ourselves. So what does it really mean to challenge your mind? So before I dive into my little spiel on this, I want you to think, if I were to tell you, hey, I want you to challenge your mind right now. What would be your first instinct to do? It's going to be different for everyone on this call today. So when I think about challenging your mind, and when I look at the research, what I think about is a couple of things. Challenging your mind can be slowing down, whether that's actually stopping and not doing anything for a bit, which in our modern day is very hard for a lot of people, myself included. I'll put myself on the chopping block first there. So is it hard for you to slow down? Is it challenging for you to kind of take a step back and maybe let someone else run point on a project, or let someone else in your home take charge of the planning? I also view challenging your mind as learning something new. When was the last time you tried something new? Learned a new skill, a new language, tried to take on a different role at the office? I also see challenging your physical body as a way to challenge your mind. One of my mentors a while ago told me when I was starting a new project to take my body with me. And her point was that a lot of people who work hard in their careers, who work hard on creative projects, are so cerebral and in their brains that they forget that a way to continue creating and challenging themselves is to get back into their bodies. So even simple things like challenging your balance, and we'll talk about some more specifics in a couple of moments, or using your opposite hand to brush your teeth. Those are ways that you're challenging your body and in turn challenging your brain. Or even something like moving your body while listening to a podcast or an audiobook. Another really great way that I look at challenging your mind is this idea of practice versus performance. So are you trying to perform perfectly every day, or are you in practice? Well, yes, we want to do our best, we want to work hard, we want to perform well. I personally think that it's actually more important, and there's a really good TED talk on this about children actually and learning, that it's more important to be constantly in practice than in performance, because in practice is where we truly learn. Having the ability to make mistakes and learn from them is really important for our overall growth and the overall development of our mind. And then another huge piece to challenging your mind is mindfulness. So are you aware of your thoughts? Because once you're aware of your thoughts, you can then change your thought patterns and you can continue to grow and learn and move differently. So some of the benefits of challenging your mind. Cognitive and social engagement have been shown to be protective against excuse me, cognitive decline. Challenging our brains can actually create neural changes in our brain, boosts our memory, builds more gray matter over time, creates new neural connections that help keep your mind youthful, and preserves memory, amongst a lot other things. So right now, if you can, while you're at your desk or in your space, I would love for you to reflect on your current mindset. And this is not a judgment. This is just a reflection. There's no right or wrong answer here. There's no points you will be given. There's no one person better than the other. So if you want to write it down, you can write it down. If you want to just think about it, you can do that as well. So first of all, what are you thinking right now? What is the first thought that comes to your mind? I think too often we think without realizing we're thinking, and it's helpful to just notice. That's what my thought pattern was there. Okay. Couple other things to think about. Do you normally look towards the bright side of things, or are you more apt to focus on the negative side effects of a situation? Do you consider yourself a cup half full or a cup half empty type of person? And one thing I do want to preface before I continue on here, I recognize that in 2020 and in the kind of current world that we are in, a lot of this can be very up and down because there's so much going on in everyone's personal lives, globally, nationally. So with that said, take this with a grain of salt and come back to these questions. It doesn't have to be a just today, just this month, just this year thing. But I think it's important as we challenge our mind to constantly be reflecting on our mind and our mindset. So what are some common thoughts that repeat in your head? What are some common things that you kind of say to yourself all the time? Maybe when starting a new work project or household project or just putting yourself out there for the first time, what are your first thoughts when someone gives you a new challenge? And then, kind of similar to what we reflected on earlier, do you believe you can change your mind? Do you believe you can learn something new? And do you believe you can grow? Once again, just a reflection here. So let's dive into a little bit of the power of the mind. So our thoughts have a great power over our mind and our body. Our thoughts can influence our emotions and our behaviors. So understanding what the mind is capable of can help you use its power to take control over your body and your emotions. So some key ways to use your mind is awareness and focus, becoming aware of your thoughts and paying attention to them as they enter and leave your mind, as well as focusing on the thoughts you want to cultivate. Some other ways to really take advantage is awareness. Like I said, the first step is just becoming aware of your masks. Of your mask, excuse me. I'm thinking of about to say something about the current kind of climate. It's becoming aware of your thoughts, whether it be about masks, like I said, about 2020, about what's going on. There is no right or wrong way, but just being aware of what is coming through your mind. I think about it when someone comes in through my door or I see someone on the street. What are my first thoughts? What do I want to say? What thoughts do I have frequently? How do those thoughts then affect my mood? Does anything outside of you change your thoughts? So back to interacting with people at the moment. Do things you notice on the street affect you? Do things you notice in the news affect your thoughts? Just becoming aware of these little things gives you the power to access your mind and the power to change your mind. And then intention. You can use the power of your mind to shape your reality, but what is your intention behind that? So are you changing your thoughts because you think they're bad, or you're changing your thoughts because you want to cultivate a certain way to feel? And those might seem similar, but they're really not. When we are cultivating a way we want to feel, that's very different than shaming ourselves for having a bad thought. So when you're starting to try to use your mind, can you set an intention for how you want to feel, what you want to accomplish, and how you want to be? Essentially, get clear on what you want to cultivate in your life. And that in itself is a way to challenge your mind and to harness the power of your mind. And then focus. This is something really hard right now. There are so many different things being thrown at us every minute of the day. Can you focus your mind on one thing at a time? Do you have the patience with yourself to pause and reflect? These days, it can be really, really hard to focus, like I said, but it can be really important to truly understand when focusing and harnessing the power of our mind. And then, kind of like I alluded to already, it is a practice. Just as most things in life, no one is perfect. Negative thoughts come and go. Our mind changes and fluctuates. Can you be aware enough of your thoughts and continue to return to this practice of being aware and noticing your thoughts? So in my opinion, a huge piece of challenging your mind is mindfulness, or one way to challenge your mind is mindfulness, bringing awareness and mindfulness into your daily life. So I want to dive into a little bit about what mindfulness is. I think it gets thrown around a lot and it can get a little kind of confuddled. So mindfulness is the ability to connect to the space between stimulus and response. So say someone yells at you. The moment between that stimulus, that yelling, and your response, and being able to pause in between that stimulus and response is cultivating mindfulness. So I always give the example, and if anyone's heard me speak before, you've probably heard this, and I use it all the time, is in Boston. You're driving, right? Someone cuts you off. That's a stimulus. The response can be anything. And I'm not telling you there is a right response. I'm saying before you honk or throw some expletives or yell or shake your fists, can you just pause? I'm not saying don't honk. I'm not saying don't do any of those things. I'm just saying pause, take a deep breath, and kind of notice. That in itself is challenging enough to our minds and can help us grow. Mindfulness is also the awareness of your mind, body, and the space around you. The awareness that you have choices you can make every day. Being in tune with your mind and body so you can make better choices for yourself and being present right here and right now. I really think that mindfulness is a challenge in our modern day because there is so much going on around us. There are so many decisions to be made. There are so many people in our lives. There's so much information. So being mindful is a challenge within itself. So I think that's the first place to start when kind of building a practice of challenging your mind and keeping yourself fresh. And just some brief benefits of mindfulness, because it's always nice to have the benefits, right? When you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this thing, but what does it really entail? So mindfulness helps decrease stress levels, enhances the ability to deal with illness, decreases depressive symptoms, improves general health, boosts resiliency, reduces work-related stress and psychological distress, decreases burnout, lowers blood pressure, so many good things here. So mindfulness has overarching benefits. And then the huge one here is it really is challenging to our minds to practice mindfulness. So it's kind of the first way that I'm going to challenge you to challenge your mind. So in line with that, I think this is a great quote. Instead of worrying about what you cannot control, shift your energy to what you can create. That concept in itself can be very challenging at times, especially in our current state of the world. There's so much out of our control on a daily basis that it can be hard not to worry about it. The challenge is taking a step back, taking a pause, a mindful pause, and shifting your energy to what you can create, focusing on what you can do for your immediate family, friends, community. That is a challenge within itself because it's a switch. It's a switch of our thought patterns, and not a switch that we focus on a lot. So diving into some challenges. So when we also look at challenging your mind, there are some simple tasks you can do to challenge your mind. And a lot of this is really just becoming aware of your habits. You'll start to notice becoming aware of your habits and changing them, or just challenging yourself to change them. This is not to say your habits are wrong. This is just to say keeping our mind fresh is changing things up every now and then. Don't get me wrong, I am a lover of routine and organization, and I think that a daily schedule is important, but sometimes we can get kind of set into the lull of our daily schedule, the lull of our daily lives, that we're not really growing anymore. And I think in order to be, happy and to be finding joy in life, we do need to challenge ourselves a little bit every day, because that's what keeps us learning. At the end of the day, we are meant to learn and grow and put ourselves out there. So these are just some quick mini challenges you can start to infuse into your day. There is no, like I said, there is no perfect challenges. They're just some easy ones. So one of my all-time favorites is actually to brush your teeth with a hand you don't usually use. I mentioned that already, but I think it's an important one to mention again. I've worked with treating patients with concussions before, and this kind of using your opposite hand is a really great brain challenge, because our habit is always use one hand and it's automatic. And when things are automatic, we don't use our brain as much, use our brain power as much. So simple things like brushing your teeth with your other hand, or using your other hand to feed yourself, or even as simple as like opening the door with another hand, can really challenge our brains and almost be like, stop us in our tracks. If you've ever had, and I hope no one ever, has, but if you've ever had, say, surgery or an injury on like your dominant hand, you can think about how challenging it is to try to do all your household tasks with one hand. You have to think about it like, wait a second, how do I get my hand to my mouth? So that's a fun little mini challenge you can start right away. Another one is take a different route to work or the store, or even just take a different walking route. I have one client I work with who was telling me, with everything going on, he has one running route that he felt was really safe doing. But he was starting to get bored and it wasn't as fun anymore and it didn't feel nearly as challenging. And his wife said, "Hey, why don't you just run it backwards? So the same exact route, just run it in the opposite direction." And it was so funny because when he told me about it, he was like, "It was the most exciting part of my week. Like it just kind of changed my perspective on things and gave me some fresh things to look at that I normally am not looking at." So it once again might sound really simple, but it's a great way to challenge your brain and keep you on your toes and keep you fresh. Eating a bite or two of dinner with your eyes closed, or just in general, doing things with your eyes closed safely, of course, lets us kind of tune into our five senses and sharpen our five senses. And in sharpening our five senses, we're sharpening our mind and challenging our mind. So whether it's eating a bite or two of dinner with your eyes closed, or um, enjoying a sip of tea, or even, walking a few steps in your home in kind of a safe space with your eyes closed. And then listening to a new kind of music, similar to eating with your eyes closed, doing something that enriches your five senses and challenges your five senses, especially if you are musically inclined or have a really good memory. I know myself, I listen to some of the same songs over and over again because they're comforting, but putting on a new song can kind of be uplifting and brightening my day in a different way. So, some other great ways to challenge your mind. Meditation. Meditation goes hand in hand with mindfulness. Meditation has been proven to increase gray matter in the brain. It can lower stress and anxiety and can enhance various cognitive functions, including attention, memory, and as executive function. I think for a lot of people, there is a power in the pause. So much of our lives is go, 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 and stopping and pausing is challenging enough. How many times do you just pause in your day and breathe and notice what's going around you? I don't know about you, but I don't get the chance to do that a lot. So, meditating or even just stopping and taking 3 breaths. You know what? I'm going to have everyone stop and take a couple of breaths right here. So, if you can, close your eyes. Please do so. I want you to take a big inhale through your nose and a long exhale through your mouth. 2 more just like that. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. 1 more big breath in, fill all the way up. Open mouth. And just notice what comes up here. Pausing when you feel like you have a million things to do can be really, really hard and really challenging. Another great way to challenge your mind is to write. Writing stimulates the brain, engages different parts of the brain, and boosts your cognitive functioning. Use it to enhance your creativity, improve memory, and stay sharp. So this could be writing, journaling, writing just for yourself. This can be writing to share with others. This could be as simple as just a gratitude list every day. And I bring up the gratitude list because it kind of covers mindfulness and writing in the same bit. Creating a gratitude practice and just writing 3 things down that you're grateful for every day is a great mindfulness practice as well. This could be writing like a fiction piece or poetry that no one's ever going to read, you're never going to publish, but just writing for the sake of writing. I also personally like to write about just the change of seasons, kind of noticing, once again, kind of going back to that mindfulness piece, noticing what's going on in the natural world around me and writing it down. It challenges me to notice what's going on, be aware of what's going on, and then the writing stimulates my brain. And then playing games, whether this be like a physical game, which is a little bit harder right now, sports, we're not playing as many sports and learning new sports like that, but when that is available to us, it's a great way. But even just playing new board games or crossword puzzles activates new neural circuits and boosts your mental acuity. Crossword puzzles and logical thinking games boost the left side of the brain, so language and reasoning. Jigsaw puzzles and more visual games can stimulate the right side of the brain in charge of the visual center. You know, games that really make you think. One of my personal favorites are like whodunit games like Clue. because you have to think and you have to take into account all these different pieces, or even things like Scrabble, where you have to come up with different words. It really stretches our brains and helps us think outside the box. And then language is a huge way to challenge your brain. Learning a new language creates connections between areas of the brains that leads to higher mental functioning. And learning a new language is really tough. Um, I even, I studied German in college, and if I went back, I try to go back and learn every now and then, and it's still just as challenging to learn, even though I took a couple of semesters. And one thing I want to highlight here is you might like one of these really in particular, or you might want to try a little bit of everything. I am a personal believer that variety is really the best thing for our overall health. So whether that's variety of movement, variety of challenging our mind, just variety in general. So I think for challenging your whole brain and your whole body, it's trying a little bit of everything. So here are some new things that you can try, just some ideas to kind of take with you, because I think trying new things are scary. And sometimes, especially when you have a lot of work on your plate, a lot to do at home, it can be hard to be like, what do I even want to try, right? Like what's a new hobby? So learning to play a sport or a game is great. Learning to dance is really challenging. And if you don't feel confident kind of learning to dance in front of others, this might sound silly, but there's a ton of YouTube videos that you can Google. I even do like Zumba, which is more of exercise based, but you can just put on a YouTube video of a way you want to dance and do it in your own bedroom or living room. Learning to garden, learning Tai Chi, taking a class, and you can do so many of these classes virtually these days, in painting, instruments such as piano, flute, guitar, writing short stories, learning how to use computers, the back end of it, which I know nothing about, even just learning things like coding or creating graphics. Something, in this past 8 months of myself that I've done, even just learning how to use Zoom and make PowerPoints for these lectures was quite the learning experience for me and really challenged my brain, but in a good way. I have a lot, I feel I have got a bigger skill set now. Even something as simple as flower arrangements or learning about new flowers. Something that I did this summer that was really challenging in a good way to my brain is we have a beautiful garden in our backyard, and we know a lot about gardening, and we grow a lot of herbs, but I didn't really know what to do with those herbs. So my challenge to myself was, okay, we have these herbs that we grow in our garden. What are some other ways I can use them? Whether they be in teas, or in different food, things like that. And then things with your hands. So knitting, crocheting. I took up candle making in the past 8 months. Never thought I'd do that. It can be really handy for holiday gifts as well. And then volunteering at a local charity. So something that might be a little outside your comfort zone, and it might be a little bit more difficult now. There are a lot of virtual opportunities you can look into, but just volunteering and trying something new. Um, you know, One thing I did, this was years ago, was I really love skiing, downhill skiing, but I wanted to volunteer for young children with disabilities. So I volunteered teaching them winter sports, but they were adaptive winter sports like cross country and sledding. And it was such a new world for me because I knew how to ski, but I didn't know how to cross country ski. I didn't know how to use the adaptive gear. So I was learning and teaching and assisting. Walking around a new city or just exploring your city, um, getting out into your neighborhood, or if you move to a new neighborhood and just by foot exploring what's going on is really great for the brain. Joining a book club, learning new books, trying new foods, new types of restaurants. Once again, kind of anchoring into those five senses and challenging the five senses to appreciate and notice new types of foods, spices, and herbs. And then things like joining a collector's club. So this sounds silly, but creating a new collection, whether it be gemstones or stamps or books, and really diving into that new collection and learning more about that can be really challenging to our brains, but in such a good way that can spur a brand new interest and passion. So these are just a couple of really great ways to challenge your mind, to challenge yourself, to learn new things and try new things. Like I said, there is no right or wrong here. There's just kind of you and what you want to do next. And I think, especially in a time where a lot of things are stressful, if I could stress one thing, it's the importance of trying something new that's exciting to you. So, like I said, I gave a lot of different kind of options here, and you don't have to try them all. But if one particularly piqued your interest, I invite you to try it without judgment for yourself and without worrying that it needs to be perfect or they have to do it right. Just trying. My name is Carrie McGinn. I'm going to take the screen share off in just a moment and open up the floor to questions. Beautiful. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat or unmute yourself. I'm happy to answer any questions I have and direct you to some good resources. And I also want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate everyone who has showed up today. It is so fun to have you guys and to explore, new topics. Challenges my mind.
Hi, my name is Joan.
Hi, Joan.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm not sure I have my. Okay, now that might be better. I had recently met with oh my goodness, a dietitian who teaches alternative medicine in comparison to Western medicine. And we were talking about mindfulness around eating. And she actually suggested that I look at a product called a Muse, M-U-S-E. I was just curious if you're familiar with it at all, or what it.
No, I have not heard of that, but I have not, but I would definitely do some research onto it. Is it a like supplement or
No, it's a device that you wear around your head.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you can listen to meditation tapes, guided meditation tapes. And it actually allegedly measures brainwave activity, and it can help you sort of hone in and continue to develop your skill at meditating. And that's the thing that I've, since COVID, I never meditated. Now I meditate, but I don't really know if it's working. I mean, sometimes I do fall asleep unintentionally because I'm awake during the day.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if anybody, even other people on this.
Yeah. So actually, I'm so glad once you explained it, I don't know the exact product, but I know the concept of it. So there's other things like HeartMath has some devices to measure kind of heart rate variability. The first thing I want to say about that, if you're even attempting meditating, you are doing it right, because the idea is not that you have to quiet your mind, but that you're just bringing awareness to your mind. So I am a firm believer that there's really no right or wrong way to meditate or be mindful. It's more just where you're directing your attention. And I'm a big believer in kind of, say you're meditating and your mind starts to wander, and then you pull yourself back. That's a really great practice. Like, oh, that's where my mind went. Like, let's notice it and then come back. And then as in terms of a product like that, they can be really helpful for, I find, kind of visual learners like myself. I'm a visual learner, so seeing something that kind of tracks kind of that progress can be really helpful. So I think it is, weighing the cost benefit, like how much does it cost versus how much you're going to use it and how helpful it would be. And I think for visual learners, something like that can be very helpful because it gives you something kind of tangible to look at, instead of just noticing, how you feel.
Terrific, thanks. I bought it for myself as a gift. Just to, I'll let you know if you want to know about it.
I'd love to hear. I love it. And I had a couple of questions here, just so you guys know. This lecture has been recorded and will be sent to your employer group, so you will have access to it after this. I'm going to answer one other thing. Is someone asked about the TED Talk on the children and learning. I am so sorry, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but what I will do is look for it, because it was kind of a friend told me about it and I thought of it today. And I will pass it along to someone who can add it kind of into the recording here so you guys can have access to it. But it was a TED Talk about children with practice versus performance and how children do a lot better practicing, they show better learning when they're actually practicing. So good. I'm just going to go through some of the info on the chat box. So I have a question about how is the best way to get mindfulness to become a habit? Such a great question. And it might be a hard answer. It really depends. So for me, I'm a big believer, personally, professionally, that a little bit goes a long way. I think too often with mindfulness and meditation, we get too caught up in doing it perfectly and doing it enough. I want you to start a little bit every day. A little bit every day. And that could be just noticing the sights and sounds around you. That could be a full meditation. That could be kind of writing. It could be anything. The other piece to that is sometimes helpful, once again, to those visual learners, which is me, is, I don't know if I have any in my desk, Postit Notes. Postit Notes are a girl's best friend. So something that I'll do for a lot of my clients and myself is put a Postit note kind of right on my computer here and say, take a break and take 3 deep breaths. That in itself is a mindfulness practice. I used to kind of put them on my mirror in my bathroom saying, close your eyes and breathe for a second. Anything that really connects to you, or like my boyfriend used to travel a lot before traveling wasn't a thing anymore, for work. So he'd leave little notes, Post-its around the house for me that would say like, take a deep breath, or like, I miss you, or like, can't wait till I see you again. And that was almost a mindfulness practice to me, because it, like, when I was rushing, I saw something that would just make me smile and pause and be like, okay, today's going to be a good day. Beautiful. Oh, sorry. Let me catch up on the chat. I love this. So good. Yes, meditation is great for stress reduction and overall quality of life. Yoga is very helpful for mindfulness and learning to witness your thinking as well. So good. Yes, some other really great suggestions in the chat. Audible is so great. I also think guided meditations are great, but I would say finding someone whose voice you really enjoy is really helpful. And that's not saying that like it's someone's bad or good, but I find that when you really enjoy the voice, it's easier to focus on and can definitely be a little bit more soothing. And that's all just kind of personal preference. And there's so many guided meditations on different apps on YouTube. I have some personal meditations on my YouTube channel. If you just search Carrie McGinn, there's so many people that have kind of guided meditations. Beautiful. Of course. Yes, journaling. I love that. Writing myself little notes and reminding myself to practice patience. So I will add a little something there. One thing that I've been saying to everyone I work with and to myself is that we all deserve a little bit of grace right now. And I have to remind myself that I deserve a little bit of grace too. So, there's so much going on. There's so many different pieces being thrown at us that we can just remind ourselves that we deserve a little bit more grace and a little bit more patience, just as everyone else around us does. That's a mindfulness practice in itself too. It might seem too simple to actually be a mindfulness practice, but it really is just being aware that, hey, let me just slow down. Like, this person might be having a rough day. I might be having a rough day. Maybe I didn't get a good night's sleep. Let me just take 3 deep breaths and have a little bit more patience with myself. I do this a lot when Zoom isn't working with me well, and like the internet connection goes down. I'm like, okay, Carrie, take a deep breath. We'll get through this. So yes, reminders to practice patience. And then another small thing I just kind of thought of in terms of mindfulness question and a lot of this challenging your mind question is making it easy on yourself. So visual reminders is a great way to do that, but kind of setting yourself up for success. So say, a good example is when people want to add a meditation practice or add a movement practice into their daily life, the how is really tough. And they're always like, I want to start my morning off on the right foot. So my go-to, and I do this for myself every morning, is set your future self up for success. So say you want to start a meditation practice and you want to start it first thing in the morning. I literally will lay out a pillow to sit on, a blanket to get cozy in. I'll put a cup of tea and lay a tea bag on top so that when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, there's my tea, there's my spot to sit. I'll kind of have a guided meditation pulled up on my phone or on my computer. I make it as easy as possible so I can slide into that new habit, new routine. Same with, that's more of a meditation practice, but same with a movement practice. Like my sneakers are by the door. I have my socks and my sneakers. I have all my clothes laid out. Like, I am making it as simple as possible for myself that I'm just going to go and try something new. And same thing, say after your end of your workday, you're really tough and you want to try one of these new habits. You want to say you want to learn a new dance, on YouTube, have it pulled up on your home computer so that when you get home, it's like, nope, I'm just going to go, I'm going to try it. If I love it, I'll keep going. If I hate it, I'll turn it off. Giving yourself that ability to just start and then stop is really helpful. Beautiful. Any last minute questions? I have a couple more moments available. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, everyone. Really, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for the wonderful questions and all the sharing. I love hearing from you guys. It's so wonderful. Of course.
Carrie, another mini challenge I used to do when my kids lived at home, I would rearrange the silverware drawer every once in a while. And it would just be, when you go to make it, you just get a bowl of cereal and like, wait, the spoons are usually on the left. Why are the spoons over there? And I'm like, everything changes. Everything changes. The silverware changes.
I love that.
But it was really I would every once in a while.
Yeah, I love that. So I thought about that. We have my boyfriend and I have like a roommate on our other floor, and recently it switched over for like one roommate to the other. We had someone new move in, and he even just like puts the dishes away a little bit differently, and it's almost like, wait a second, is this my kitchen? And then, but it challenges our brain, and I'll say it makes us more mindful, because how many times are you going through the motions and just like, all right, let me grab this cup and let me grab that, and not really paying attention to what you're doing. And I think it also makes us more resilient, because this is going to sound really silly, and I'll leave it on this note and leave room for one more question. But when you're having a bad day, and like, say you spill your coffee, I always when I'm having a bad morning, I always spill something, right? It can be really hard to get really frustrated right away and lose that patience with yourself. But if you have this practice of like, oh wait, the silverware somewhere is different, let me slow down and notice what I'm grabbing before I rush to the next thing, because usually it's rushing when we really get frustrated with ourselves. So I think even just switching things up on yourself like that actually helps us practice more patience, because we have to think it a little bit through a little bit more. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Oh, good. All righty. I have room for one more question or one more comment. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed this. Really, thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys. Loved being here. You guys are a great group. All righty. I am off. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and I hope to connect with you guys soon. Bye.